Hi there, I've come out for a spot of camping. I'm going to do some tests. This will be I'm going to split them up into 3 videos, but I'm just going to do them as one. This will be a bit of a test and review of these 3 knives, because they're all very similar and they're sold for similar purposes. The Bear Grylls knife, the Gerber strong arm, and the LMF2. Just going to do all 3 of them, do the same thing with all 3. Going to do a bit of carving, and I'll probably chop with them. I'm not big on chopping with knives. I'll chop with them, I'll carve with them, I'll test the tips, I'll see if they light a fire still, that sort of stuff, and draw some conclusion at the end about which is the good one. And I think they're all going to be pretty good, but which is the better one for each purpose. LMF2, don't know how it'll go. It's I got the serrations, it's a bit more urban, looks like it belongs on a parachutist's vest or something like that. I reckon it's going to be between these 2, so let's get to it. And thanks for watching. Broken tip. Wow. It's a bit of a surprise. Some bending and breaking on the tip there. That wasn't my full body weight or anything, it was just a sort of holding the top of the tree as well, just giving it a bit of a stamp. So there you go. And that's the same knife that was the same test done to it, the 420 HC. The strong arm. Yeah, my standard, my Falkneven F1, it's about the same depth, no issues at all. and the Gerber LMF. Okay. And that tip, just fine. Well, I might just sit down and take stock of what just happened. First test I did, somewhat regrettably, was just a tip strength test. So I just put the knife about an inch or so into a tree, just gave it a bit of downward pressure, see if the knife would either support a bit of weight or you fold out of the tree or whatever. It's just a outer layer of bark of a big riverside gum tree, so it's not hard dead wood or anything, and it went in pretty easily into the squishy sappy outer bark. The LMF too, absolutely fine, no issues at all. Got into the same point on this one as I did on the others. Held my weight for a little tiny bit, small test, but the rest of it then just ended up folding out, which was fine as I expected. No worries at all. The Gerber strong arm, which was the one I was actually the most nervous about, because it just seems like it's the least, survivalish sort of knife, was absolutely fine as well. Went in, the tip is still perfectly intact, there's no bending or anything like that. This is using that same 420 HC still. And then we got to, well, I guess firstly I did my, once there was a little malfunction, I did my Falkneven F1, which is a laminated steel, so it's got your 420 and then your VG10 on the core. Again, completely fine, no bending, tip maintains integrity, no worries at all. And then the first knife that I did, the one I felt would be the most, well, the second knife actually, the one I thought would be the most, I thought it was the higher quality steel. That happened. The other half still lodged about a half inch or an inch or so into the tree. The outer bark of a tree, and it really did just bend and then snap. I know it's probably not a super realistic situation, but then again in the past I have used my knife to hang up tarps and things at camp for a clothesline and such, and I've never had that happen. So, a bit disappointed. I wish I'd done this that first test last. Just thought a few whacks into a tree just be like a cool little strength test, and it was for the other knives, but this steel just couldn't handle it. Oh, let's get on with things. It's starting to get a bit cold. Definitely got a good chop on it. catches the hand really well, the grip there. Just 2 fingers, nice little bit of a, let its own weight do the work. I know it's partially serrated, but that heavy tip's doing quite a good job. There. Not too many problems whatsoever with the LMF2. This is a strong arm. I'm going to have a crack at chopping with this as well. Okay, fair bit more recoil through this handle. I think it's because I'm holding onto a much smaller bit, and it's all kind of coming straight through the all the vibrations coming straight through the end of that handle there. Just not as heavy a knife as well, and of course chopping with a knife like this isn't ever ideal either. So this is just more hard use testing. So, but it is doing fine for what I would expect it to do. Gets through stuff okay. LMF2 vastly superior, just because of its weight. Even my Falkeniven F1, now this won't do anything close to what that LMF2 did. Yeah, it's just not a chopping knife at all. The weight simply isn't there in the Falkeniven F1. So that's the chop test. So definitely give it to the Gerber LMF2. Now, other chopping, how did that go? The chopping with the strong arm, that was okay. But it's too light, and that's fine. That's not Gerber's fault. The edge held up fine to the chopping that I did do with it, but there just isn't enough weight in the front of the knife. It's just too light and nimble. It really is more of a combat or utility knife, and chopping is something that you would rarely do with a knife unless it was all you had. You'd hope you had an axe with you, but sometimes you don't, and sometimes you do need to get a bit of tinder or kindling from a standing dead tree or something. So you just need to chop off a limb. And as you usually would do, you'd probably just end up chopping a little way and then just leaning on it and snapping it anyway. So that's not the most important test in the world for these knives. This one did okay, probably not the best. The LMF2 on the other hand, this feels like a little axe in your hand. Just the swell there when you hold it, and just the heaviness of the tip. It's really quite a well balanced knife for chopping. You can just feel the weight sort of fly right to the end when you chop. And the serrations don't affect the chopping because you aim all of your strikes at the end there. So that was really cool. My Falkeniven, that was the worst of all of them. So it's definitely not a chopping survival knife, the Falkeniven F1. It's just way too light, which is fine, that's why I like it, but definitely not a chopper. And my system, as I've probably said a couple of times, has an axe in it anyway, so chopping with a knife isn't, as I said, the most important thing, but the LMF2 definitely does it best. The poor old Gerber Bear Grylls survival Well, that's probably not going to get too much action today after its tip snapped off, so there we have it. At any rate, so LMF2, strong arm, Falconivan, and then in a completely separate category, blitzing all the competition, was my my mini hatchet, which I'll probably do for a separate video though. Thanks. Alrighty, let's do some, that's right, batoning. This is pretty solid, pretty hefty wood, so I'm not going to be too hard on these knives if they don't get through it super easily, because they're probably not the right grind, and it's probably not the right purpose of the knives, but let's have a look, see. There we go. That is one knotty, nasty piece of wood. Here she goes. This is a real test for this knife. It is somewhat twisting in there as we speak. Wow, okay, let's have a look at what sort of stuff that was going through. So that is just a nasty, there's knots there from this branch, there's knots there from this branch. You can just see inside. But look at the trajectory the knife had to travel. Let's break it open. And that knife is absolutely fine. It is still dead straight. The edge is still shaving my hairs. That is impressive. I thought this 420HC would just be a disaster with this sort of stuff. I know it's fine for like you know, chopping and combat use and things like that, but yeah, that's really impressed me. Very cool. No movement in the handle whatsoever, even though I had to strike on the back a couple of times with the log. That just gives the knife character anyway, if you ask me. A few little dings and knocks. Makes it mine, you know. Let's move on. Here's the big boy, the LMF2. We'll go through some of this one and see how those serrations hold up in particular. Giant knot in the woods, just kind of pushing the knife to the side. Let's try again from the top. Looking fine so far. Only option is, because you need to use the center of the blade, you're going to have to use those serrations, but still metal on wood, so it should win. To a big ass knot here, we'll see how this goes. There goes the strong arm. Get that tip. Wow, okay. Did the job and it looks good. And that is just, that's like the Australian version of fat wood, but it's soaked dead wood. It's just all oily and resinous, but super hard. And the Gerber LMF, serrations and all, just ploughed through it. and that's with my very subpar skill at battening. Really is a test when you get a semi-retard like me forcing steel through wood like that, and it did just fine. Glassy, resinous wood. This is just a sort of a bit of a test to see how the knife feels when it's really getting pushed into your hand. That is some hardwood there. It really has gone to like glass. All the stuff in it's obviously been sort of like freeze hardened, and yeah, quite difficult to manipulate at all with this knife. Thought I'd do something a little bit more sensible. This is just a stick. Just do some standard stick sharpening. When you're doing these sorts of tasks with what's clearly a combat or a survival knife, you can't expect it to cut like your Mora or your Falkenhaven, completely carving away the wood. It is more of a war of attrition, forcing that flat and standard V bevel into the wood from the angle that you want, so the knife does less of the work for you, which again is fine. Because it's not exactly within the product's intended purpose. However, to test this knife's intended purpose, I'd probably have to go on like Fighter Guy, which not going to happen. When you dig in there, it still feels pretty good. That's sort of caught up and snagged and tore away, and it's good on the handle still. It's probably good that I'm wearing gloves though. It's a pretty rough handle texture, but because of that, it is just staying put. My thoughts thoughts on the strong arm as a carver? It'll do it. It'll do it fairly comfortably. It won't do it as well as a proper carving knife, which is understandable. This is a sort of a one tool type knife, like to have a good chance of doing everything at an average or at a good pace and in a good way. The edge is holding up really well. The steel is holding up much better than I thought it would, and definitely very happy with it. Alrighty, the Gerber 2 LMF. Just going to carve away at some of this glassy resinous wood first. That's really strange. This is feeling really natural to me, just using the end to do my shaving. I think it's just the way the knife fits in your hand. You can sort of lock your arm and push down and it's not too bad. Just sort of use that grind and dig away. I'll get the same piece that I was using the strong arm on, see how it goes on that, because this probably was a bit more difficult. Yeah, again, that's just super glassy and hard. But this handle is probably one of the most comfortable handles I've used. Really happy with it. This is quite hard work doing this, and it's not really making any hot spots at all. And move on to something a bit more realistic. Nice bit of standing deadwood. Feeling pretty good. Definitely a pretty good carver, seeing as it's using the portion of the blade you wouldn't usually use. Pretty happy with that. Let's check these serrations out, see how they actually do. You know what, they're probably going to ruin the serrations pretty quickly, cutting like this, but in a pinch, there's nothing really wrong with that either. Some pretty rough feathering, but feathering nonetheless. Happy with the LMF2. That's a good carver, it really is. Just ignore the tip, that's really comfortable, and that is a really good carving edge. It's better than the other two Gerber knives, better than the LMF and better than the strong arm. Probably being able to get your finger up there is probably a big part of it, but even still the blade kind of digs a bit deeper. Let's tilt down and try this crazy wood that the strong arm and the LMF sort of battled against. Can't get over how glassy and hard that wood is, but yeah, as I said, this does an easier job of it, and it feels less. It just feels like less like I'm forcing a square peg into a round hole. It just feels like this is more designed to be a knife that you hang around and perhaps whittle around the fire with. It's not, however, a knife that you test the tip by putting into a tree and then putting a few kgs on it. I'm finding the handle really comfortable when you're holding it like this. I'm still not sold on the sort of marked out finger choil. I know it's a safety thing. As I said, I think this knife's made for people who probably haven't used a great deal of sort of outdoors knives before, so it does kind of teach them to, you know, hold a knife a little bit, which I'm quite happy holding a knife, so I would be happy without this sort of defined groove here, but there you go. I'm pretty happy with the Bear Grylls knife as a carver. Alrighty, had a few good hours out here testing these knives. I've done some pretty rotten things to them. The obvious failure is the one that happened at the start of the video that kind of excluded the Bear Grylls from competing in much else. I'm in two minds about whether to be too damning about it. On one hand, the two knives of the supposedly inferior steel were just fine. Whatever the reason that could be, some suggestions would be perhaps quality control, quality of steel manufacture from the American 420HC as opposed to the Chinese CR19 MOV steels. Perhaps some variable like in the tree, just where the Bear Grylls went in, that there was like some sort of super vortex thing that just grabbed it and would never have let it go. But I do struggle with that because it was a thick tree, and it was still just in the bark really, like it was just sappy and soft, and the other two's just pried out a big chunk when I put the downward pressure on them. Yeah, but on the other hand, it probably isn't something that the knife was designed to do. Knives, I guess, I'm sure the official literature would just say this knife's designed to cut. Another way of explaining it, I guess, would be that I wouldn't expect that to be covered on warranty, what I just did to that Bear Grylls knife. I'd never have the gall to the cheek to send that back and say, oh, I was using a knife for normal purposes and it broken, because it's not normal, I can see that, but I think it is telling more, rather than focusing on the inferiority of the Gerber, perhaps we'll look at the quality instead of the strong arm and the LMF2, which did the same test. I think the LMF2, the strong arm actually went in a bit deeper as well, and just pried out a nice bit of chunky, waxy, sappy bark. So, yeah, perhaps we'll just focus on the positive side there. So all in all, yeah, these two American-made Gerber knives are just a cut above most other knives. They're up there with my Falkneven F1, perhaps not in super fit and finish, but they're probably actually, and it's weird to say this, if you are just looking for the one knife, because they are a bit heavier and a little bit more likely to be good choppers, or especially this one, but even this one was better than the Falkneven. I'd probably go as far to say as get one of these if you're after your first survival knife or your first camp utility knife. And if you don't really like serrations that much, although they didn't really trouble me too much in this testing, the strong arm's definitely the one to go with. So yeah, just really happy with the strong arm and the LMF, particularly with the LMF. You know, like I sort of got this one as a bit of a oh well, I'll take it out as well, and you know, it's a different purpose knife. I plan it's more of a car knife, like a urban tasks knife sort of thing. And yeah, so I thought, screw it, you can do the bush stuff as well, and actually did really well. The serrations, happy with, not too fussed about at all. Like perhaps if you're using it for intense, you know, everyday use, you're going to have this as your main bush knife. Serrations might end up giving you the shits a bit with you know, you not being able to carve and cut as well. But really, for what it is, did really well. So which wins the day? You know, it's really close between the strong arm and the LMF2. I'm going to go with the strong arm just because it's just nicer, I think, and just the lack of serrations probably wins it over for me just a little bit. The handle, I was worrying it was going to be too, just sort of too hard and too severe, but it's not. It's a really good handle for when you're using it for all your carving tasks and things like that. Yeah, I'm just really impressed that it held up to some pretty nasty abuse, really. So there you go. Perhaps American craftsmanship is the way to go.